behalf of Anna Biggs, our entire family, we welcome you here today. Thank you. So, we joined House Life when I was 8 years old. I had the pleasure of being his daughter for 33 years. Hal loved his 2 sons, John with Mary, Greg with Tamara, his 3 grandsons, James, Thomas, and Eric, and of course Chris and I. I was the little girl in the family, and he made me feel like a princess. I'd be lying to you if I told you we were great kids, welcoming Hal into our lives, but we weren't. I was not prepared for Hal to show us the unconditional love that he did. He changed our lives for the better. And if you knew him, I'm sure he changed yours as well. Hal was many things. He was gentle, he was kind, he was patient, and he was very humble. Mom and Hal met while working at Hewlett Packard in the 80s. They were both members of a lunchtime running club. I would say that year they were probably in the best shapes of their lives. Who knows how many hours they spent running together, getting to know each other. As Hal was running into Mom's heart, he was patiently entering ours. Hal never turned from a challenge. He took Chris and I into his heart and his family immediately. And to say we were not angels is an understatement. No matter which juvenile delinquent issues we had, he was patient, he was consistent, and the gentle voice of reason. Hal's kindness showed in his heart and his face. He always had a huge smile that lit up the room. The kindness that Hal and Mom shared reflected in everything they did. Kindness from the house they bought in Lake Tahoe that they shared with every one of us. To the countless parties that were held at our home for every occasion, no matter how big or small. Everyone was invited and expected to bring a friend who needed a meal. They were happy to be the host and wanted you to feel welcome. Hal adored his grandsons and all of our young cousins. He always had little toys and games around to entertain. You may notice the table on the left full of many of Hal's great treasures. He loved to wind up those toys and bring joy to those young hearts. With Hal's kindness, he also brought great patience. Growing up, Hal worked days at Hewlett Packard, nights as a statistics teacher, and filled the rest of his time trying to parent us. I recall taking a statistics class at UC Davis. He went out of his way to order the book, learn the content, and then became my personal tutor to help me pass that class. But his patience didn't stop there. Like, who remembers to learning how to drive a stick shift, right? He would take me and drive me over to De Anza College, and I would practice in his truck for weeks. Talk about patience. That poor truck. For the record, I'm an excellent driver, thanks to Hal, and I love driving stick shift. But it was Hal's patience that got me there. Hal's humbleness is my favorite feature about him. From his PhD at Stanford, or walking with the Olympic torch in the 1960s, Hal was a man of many talents. Did you know that he could successfully count a single deck of cards at a blackjack table? Those card tables didn't stand a chance against Hal. I'm sure those statistics classes came in handy.
Wait, can you read that again?
The louder.
Is it that?
Yeah, he was the best. He was one of the smartest men I've ever known. But Hal had many passions in his life. If you knew him, you know that he loved his family. He adored his sons and his 3 grandsons very much.
And Adriana.
And Adriana, of course. Thank you. He loved any chance he could get to spend time with them. Take a weekend away to the beach or in the mountains of Lake Tahoe. He never missed a 49ers game or a chance to watch Stanford beat Cal to bring home the Axe.
Yay!
That rivalry with the sun. at Hal. Hal loved numbers and any opportunity to solve a Sudoku puzzle in record time. His other passions included all animals, especially their Yorkies, Abby and Maggie. I think more important than all of those was Hal's and Mom's ability to teach and help others. They love family, and they love to provide through their hearts, their kindness, their patience, and their humbleness. But if you knew Hal, you knew that he loved you. He loved being with you. He loved listening to your stories about how you were doing and what you were up to. He was a great listener and always there for you no matter what. I'm very proud that Hal was there to teach me the important things in life. Being kind, being patient, being gentle, and being humble. We miss you, Hal, and love you very much. Thank you for being such a great teacher and friend. Next, I'd like to invite our cousin Michelle Sonar up to read a passage on his behalf.
Hello, everyone. This is a reading of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Next, I'd like to invite John and Greg, Hal's sons, to speak.
I'm just going to ad lib while I put it.
That's good. That's good, Jim. That's a little system. And thank you for the speech because that pretty much wiped out about 2/3 of mine. So appreciate that. I think John might have a few things to say, but I just have a couple of things. The last couple of weeks, you're sitting in traffic and you think about, in this case, Dad, and all these little crazy things. And this one thing popped up, and it was funny because I was having dinner with my uncle on my mom's side last weekend, who went to high school with Dad. And I was commenting about how Dad had one of this little quirk where, and I'm sure we can do a show of hands, who's ever had dinner with Dad or lunch with Dad in a restaurant, and he absconded with a napkin, pulled out his mechanical pencil and drew something out for you or figured out a calculation. Anybody else experience that? A few? Okay. Well, if you didn't, you missed out because it was epic. To the point, sometimes we'd have lunch and he would bring a notepad just anticipating what he wanted to illustrate to show me. It was really great. But I really appreciated a few things about my dad. One of them was just his work ethic. He worked so hard his whole life. I mean, I forget, maybe John remembers, when he had his first paper route. And at one point he had 3 paper routes, and he was always modifying his bikes to hold more newspapers. And he saved up a ton of money and bought himself a sports car when he was really a young man. And Austin Healy he was very proud of. So he just had this work ethic that, I think he's passed on to John and partially to me. So I always appreciated that. Also, he had such a, and I'll use Anna's term, just a big, beautiful brain. He was incredible with numbers. I swear sometimes the joy of his life was figuring out a new mortgage calculation, and he loved to play around with numbers. And so that was just, it was great to be around with that. It was fascinating sometimes just to listen to him. But the thing that I loved the most about my dad was that he was never more than a fraction of a second away from a laugh. And he made a lot of people laugh. he was constantly defaulting to joy. And, that's a life skill, and he was naturally that way. But my dad, you could probably break his life into two sections, first half and second half. First half was, a very young man, 18, had this little boy here. 5 years later, had me, and, tried to have a young family and all the aspirations of somebody who has that work ethic. Went and got a master's degree while riding on the train up and down to San Francisco to Wells Fargo, his job, and just trying to raise the family. And sometimes those things don't work out perfectly. And the second half of his life was when he met Anna, and that's when Dad's bucket was filled with love. And it was a beautiful thing to see after what I witnessed my dad went through certain trials and tribulations of what an ideal life he probably thought of when he was 17, 18, when he started his family. And he so appreciated Anna and her unconditional love for him until the end. But on top of that, Dad always, I think, had a yearning to be part of a large family, an extended family and friends. And our little family was just never big enough to fill that bucket for Dad. But when he met Anna, Anna came with an army of people, right? And that was heaven for Dad. And I know, seeing some of the faces here that I haven't seen for a while, he took such joy. I was just teasing Carl that I always joke that Carl was the son Dad never had. But he only had 2 sons. He spent a lot of time with Carl and just the family in general. And he so enjoyed being a part of your family. And I can't tell you how many times I was so thankful for that, and just knowing what it brought to him, and he finally found his community in Anna's family. So I just, the last thing I want to say is just thank you for that, because you gave him a fantastic second half of his life. And hopefully you all feel like you were rewarded by the relationship, because Dad was a great guy. Not a malicious bone in his body, always very positive, loved to be the life of the party. He used to keep a handwritten joke in a folded piece of paper in his wallet, just so he always had a ready laugh to share. He was just that kind of guy, and I'm just proud to have him be my dad. But thank you for the time you spent with him, the love you gave to him, because that meant the world to him more than anything else. So thank you.
I was just thinking when you were saying that it was funny. He always talked about, wouldn't it be great to have this big, wouldn't it be great to have this big family, and we do family gatherings. It's kind of, okay, well, you do about that for the moment.
I get about 5 people together, Dad.
Yeah. But it was a constant. And then the other thing was he never really knew how to throw a party. I mean, that's what he did. But Anna is absolutely great at it. So it worked out as far as just from that little one angle of the whole thing. But it was, so anyway, I'm just thinking about this numbers thing. Remember once we were in the townhouse we were in, and he comes to me and almost wakes me up and says, I just proved the compounding of interest formula. And I always wonder why there's a negative one, and that it's just kind of off by itself. And he proceeded he wanted to show me the whole proof, which is multiple papers. That was like with Dad, None of you were prepared for anything. So I prepared just a few slides because I need prompts for myself and as well, and I just like this picture. But just to for one thing, he always was a handsome devil. So. There we go. That's him, actually. I know before you guys knew him, this is actually the brick in there is. Like Jane Beach. Yeah, no. We call it the Superman swirl. So that's your old fireplace in Lafayette. So has the brickwork in the back. But anyway, I just thought that would be fun. But he did come from he was one of 3 children. And I just put the picture up in the corner there. That's him as a baby in Santa Cruz, a place where he'd go back to the rest of his life. And, he lived there, lived in Annapolis for a number of years, but he always loved that. But he's a very brave brother.
Are you really?
Yeah. Good looking. As you know, sports were very important to him. One of my earliest memories is my dad saying, "We can stay up late because it's the Olympics. It's important." And I remember saying, "Okay, I can stay. What is the Olympics?" I didn't know he had done some track and field. His first love was football. His mother actually said, "No, you're not playing football." For 1 year at MDD, but he was able to run track. So when he one year he was a miler in 1960 when the Olympics were happening in Lake Tahoe. He got selected with a number of other milers to carry the torch. And a lot of people don't know this, but he didn't get the last of the legs that went to the Capitol. Someone else did, and so I don't want to go up there. It's going to be standing there and all that kind of thing. He's like, yes, I do. So he actually traded to get that spot. And that's him with the governor. And then the thing he's always pointed out in this picture is that's Bob Mathias, who at the time and a 2-time gold medalist in decathlon. And, which decathlon gets the purpose, or it's the title of being, the world's greatest athlete. So Bob Mathias, known as a teenager, and then he set world records in it in the 50s. So Dad always liked sports. He liked talking about sports. So that was like that. I will say, so when he kind of like, hey, you want to play some sports, like that, and I think I was about 9 or 10, and we're in the grocery store, and there was, like when they had bulletin boards at the back of the grocery store, and it says, hey, ice hockey. What do you think about that? And I had just seen something on ice hockey on TV. I thought, that sounds like really a lot of fun. I got excited. It's probably the first time I ever got excited about sports or anything like that. There we were. We went to the first meeting. We found the whole thing. I didn't know how to skate, so I learned how to skate. And I didn't. We realized real quickly the gear is expensive, and I have wide feet, and I remember having to shop for ice skates. Kangaroo's fur, I remember in them. It was weird. But so anyway, it was a lot of work. And at the time, he was in grad school at the time, and I remember when you're 10 years old and you get ice time, it's at 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning sometimes over at East Ridge. So we'd have to go all the way from Sunnyvale over to East Ridge, and then he was over there, and he'd always have his textbooks out, and he'd be writing his textbook because he was in graduate class. But he did it, and he never complained about it. Now, he did say the next year when it was time to re-sign up again, it just sort of never happened. And I played football, and he said,
No, he told me that he lied to you the next year because he couldn't deal with how early he had to get up on the weekends.
I don't blame him.
That's the rest of the story. Right from Dad.
He never said he lied. That was Dad. He lied. It just never came out.
He told me he flat out lied, but that's, He might have been embellishing for effect.
I could have been somebody.
Yeah, I know.
Flashes of aptitude.
Strong leg,
between not being
center
able to
gravity.
skate and falling down a lot. At any rate, yeah, he definitely, obviously loves the 49ers, and we have to end promptly because there's a Warriors game later, and I don't know if they have DVRs in heaven.
Oh, I guarantee it. Yeah, Dad's watching it. Don't worry.
Yeah, so he's gonna watch it live. So that was Dad in sports. He, see if I get this to advance without. I was going to talk about Dad's career a bit, or careers. That's him in, I think, 1960, what did that be, 68, 69, something like that. That was when he was at Wells Codata. He was, I'll start a little bit. His education, he was a math major. He was a math major, he says, because he didn't like reading or couldn't read for long periods of time. Later on, he found he had astigmatism. But he was good at math, and he liked math, so he was a math major. At the time, there was no such thing as a computer science major, So he got recruited to be into computer data processing. So he went to work for PG&E. Then this is at Wells Codata, which is Wells Fargo's, the arm of Wells Fargo's data processing centers when that was coming up. And he has stories from those days, but this was all in San Francisco. So we moved from Sacramento to San Rafael, and then he would commute across the Golden Gate Bridge. They had like a commuter bus or a charter that, so this Fridays, I think they had parties and at any rate, he decided he probably should get a master's degree, and then it's his MBA, and that's when we moved to Santa Clara. Or we moved to Sunnydale because he was going to school in Santa Clara University for his MBA. So he was doing quite a bit up to San Francisco, then over to Santa Clara, and home where we lived in. So this was about 1970. After he got his MBA, and he went to work for Memorex. And funny thing, I don't know how somebody does this, but at Memorex, they tapped him to start their credit union back when savings and loans were kind of coming up in the late 70s. And he was pulling all that together. I remember he would come and show me, hey, I just came up with this logo. It was an oak acorn with an oak tree, and that was their logo for the for the Memorex Federal Employees Credit Union. So he was pulling all that together, just to the side. One thing he always, the guy that sold him these pens and things like that had logos on them was Jim Barnett, who was a Warrior he played with, was the year they won the championship? No, it was Jim Barnett with, 76. He was on that team, and then he was selling sales for this company, this printing company, and now he's commentator for the commentator. So whenever he says, "That's my guy right there," Jim Barnett. So moving this away. So he always kind of kept that. He loved the sports. He loved keeping track of it all. So after that was more of a project. I think he did that for a few years, and then started to think I needed to look around. He went over. He was working with a recruiter, and the recruiter says, "Hey, why don't you work for us?" And he spent a couple of years as a executive recruiter. He could see the market was going down for jobs, and he was the last person he landed a job with, or his person was himself at HP. So he had a long career at HP, and with many side benefits, finding his wife, and it's a great time. So anyway, that's his career in a nutshell. And then we didn't talk about teaching. Sorry, that he loved teaching. I mean, he always referred to it as his captive audience. So he had set routines and a number of for the class, he teaches the same classes over and over again a lot. So he had free programs which he had to, because his workload was amazing. He'd have this one starting and that one starting, and he'd show me, he's got this one every night. Normally in these night classes, someone would do 2 nights a week, something like that. He'd layer them up. He also tried to, he talked them into having a computer lab on Saturdays, and then he ran that for a while. He had me do I covered for him a couple of times and realized I had absolutely no aptitude for teaching, spreadsheets and things like that. So it just side hustle all the time. Did I push the button? Okay. I'm not hearing the echo. Okay. Am I better?
Yeah, lights on.
Okay. Is the volume?
We're testing 1, 2, 3.
How about 1, 2, 3? Anything?
You have to yell it out, John.
All right, I'm going to speak louder then.
Pretend like you're mad at me.
Well,
Something.
there you go.
Something.
Yes.
Okay. Wore it out. All right. So even, like I said, he loved teaching. And he kept it going and always had a side hustle.
but he still managed to be the fun dad. One of the things that, as my friends, I hadn't seen in a while, would contact me about hearing about this, a couple called him the big guy. And it reminded me of how much fun he was and how much, he'd horse around with my friends. And, he just always, he loved seeing us and doing stuff with us. And this is him riding. That's in a very adorable version of Greg. But, on my bike, but that bike forever. Anyway, it was great. He was only 20 years older than I am, 25 years older than Greg. So he was kind of, he could do all those things that us old dads that are not do. So anyway, I remember he'd play football with us in the street, and he would punt. He would punt to us, and the ball would just keep going up and up and up. It never went very far. I don't know. And it never spun. It just went up and up and up. And I remember thinking, this is not normal. But obviously we stopped doing that. Any rate, and the fun continues with Dad. It was always. How about this? All right. So this is my first son, James. This is his first birthday. He's obviously bewildered. He doesn't know what a birthday is at this point. But Dad had planned this for over a year, so he knew this was coming, and he was going to get him the type, the type car. This became a little bit of a problem in that 8 years down the road, we had gotten big wheels, little wheels, tricycles, scooters. I remember, I think it was probably James' 8th birthday, or maybe it was Thomas's birthday by that point. And I lined all of these little bikes up in the back of the yard, one next to the other, and it just went across the yard. And I said, Dad, I think we have enough. And he's like, yeah, I see your point. But I'm gonna need you to unlock the gate because I got a wind car coming. And that one had like industrial size 30-pound tires on it, they were like wheelbarrow tires. And it actually had a label on there that said maximum weight 250 pounds. And I thought, who is this for? My legs are too long for this thing. And but it was fun. You could take it down the driveway and just kind of stand on the back of it. And anyway,
It was for you, John.
it probably was. The other thing is it had a trailer hitch on it, which I think probably the benefit of lining up all these bikes was to show him we didn't need the trailer. We don't have room for the trailer. So it probably saved some time there. We didn't, I don't know what happened to that fleet. I outgrew it. Any rate, that was, so before the wind-up toys there were these, and he just loved thinking this stuff ahead. In fact, his complaint on this was it had a stock little push-button horn, and he needed to soup that up. So all the other bikes had big squeezy horns on them, and that was just a big deal. I think, obviously, big day in his life when he expanded, the nuclear family here as well as the whole big family. So I mean, this has been great, and glad you're all here. It's a much bigger, much smaller crowd without. Anyway, Dad loved family, and that's Eric, by the way. He's the red hair. And anyway, we'll move forward. He also loved these get-togethers. That's his sister Marilyn, who's passed on. His brother is here. Not too much. And he never lost a sense of humor. This was just a few years ago. He was thrilled when he found he went to England, Cornwall, and they, he told him the background. He says, "No, you're a Viking." So he loved laughing that he was a Viking. And Greg and I had our DNA tested at some point for like one of the services, and we got a lot of Scandinavians, so they may be there. Southern England had a large unprotected coastline, and The Vikings aren't that far away, so it probably is true. At any rate, he loved the funny hats, and we always had them. He'd keep in his desk not only the wind-up toys, but he'd have a clown nose. So when the kids would come over, he'd put the nose on and turn around. And it's fun. All right. At any rate, this is just one of my favorite pictures of him. I think it's not Abby, that's Maggie.
No, Pebbles. Pebbles did the last one. She got eaten by the neighbor. Sorry.
Okay. I remember that now. So there were certain things. He had a lot of faces that he would make, and silly things like that. And one of the, one thing he always used to do. You may not remember this, but he always had a saying. Whenever anything scary would happen, or anything kind of a loud noise, or anything unusual, when we were little, he would just kind of go, "Funny thing." And he said it all the time. You see, you don't because I heard it, and then he would say it with you. So I was a little older. It was just a funny thing, and I asked him about it. In cases, when you're 9 years old, and I'm tired of hearing that. But he said, well, it was just, I wanted you guys to know it was not serious, and you wouldn't be scared if I said, hey, you don't need to worry about that. You go, worry about it. What? I worry about it? What am I worrying about? So it was just the way he always thought about it. He was constantly, worried about he was worried about a lot of things, but how we were reacting to the world and protecting us. So it's just something that kind of occurred to me again, and I was wondering if you remembered that. You were little.
Right. He was always very careful about how he portrayed, explained things to us in the world. And look back and see why.
Yeah. I always figure if I do something really stupid, plunge before brakes, and I'm crashing to my death, and if you pass over, I think that goes next to a funny thing.
Funny thing.
Which, so another thing was just the last time I talked to him, I wanted to convey, how I think about him all the time, and as anybody as close as we've been, and I'm shaving this morning, and I thought if I cut myself, he taught me pretty much all the methods that you could deal with fixing the nick, and I really haven't come up with any new ones since. So you kind of think about him for that. Every time I get in between two cars, taught me how to drive as well, but more defensive driving. If you get between two trucks, don't get stuck. Always leave yourself an out. Always leave yourself an out. I think about that all the time. I tried to explain that to him, but it was too much visualization, and towards the end, he just wasn't processing like that. But I did tell him a story last time I saw him about how when I was learning to write cursive, that I was worried that we were part of the assignment was we had to sign our names or something like that. We were going to mail out this letter, or something like that, but you had to put your signature at the bottom. I thought, oh, our signature. Well, that's kind of important. I better not mess this up. I better have a signature that's different so people can tell it's me. And thinking about it, I don't know when you learn cursive, it's probably second grade or something like that. And I told them, I copied yours. And at the end, there's an S, E-I-D-G-S, and then you kind of drag the pen. I dragged the pen around and then hit the I, and like that. And talking to him, you couldn't really talk back, and you weren't really sure if he was understanding or not. But he made a face, like when I mentioned the part about worrying, that if you didn't. Worrying that I'd be stuck with his signature forever, and I might not remember it, and I'll never be able to catch a check. And he kind of made this face, which he used to make a lot, and it was his eyes get big, and then kind of grind his teeth, and then kind of look around. So if he would talk about anything like, we'd sit around the campfire, he'd talk about infinite space. Infinite space, and everyone like, ugh. Or the permanency of dying, or something like that. He kind of, anyway, he made that face, and when he could barely talk and like this, it just says like, he's still in there, and he's still understanding, and he's still the same guy. And I was just really glad I had that opportunity. The other thing I did too is I kind of walked away for a second and then came back, and I saw him kind of trying to remember how he did his signature. He was like his fingers like doing this. So anyway, that was my last time with him. After that, next time I saw him, he did not regain consciousness. But anyway, so we miss him a lot. I'm glad we're having this now, and not back in November or December. He'll process it a little better, and I was pretty angry about the way the whole thing went. He said his ability not to work through his problems was really ate at him, and just a long progressive things. But anyway, nothing but good memories now, and anyway, a lot of good memories as far as something I did when it was to put up in one of those places where he's living. So anyway, thank you. What's next on the agenda?
So, but before I get there even, I want to make a point, especially for this family. So we lost a lot of people, just jumping to the point, Hal included. And one of the things that I think maybe we're missing is that a lot of these people, they live pretty good lives. And they live to most of their life expectancy. And we should celebrate that. Now it's easy to say, right? But how do you celebrate losing someone? It doesn't make much sense. But if you think about it, that's the best way to remember someone. You want to remember the good times, so you want to focus on the celebration. I want you all to think about that. We're all going to go sometime, so celebrate. Don't celebrate now. Okay, so when Hal was around, the thing I remember about Hal is he was I'm going to call it a proper gentleman. All right, and because he was a proper gentleman, I secretly kind of enjoyed kind of making him freak out a little bit. I want to be honest with you guys, right? So the other thing about Hal, you're right, he did like the big family. Okay, so he loved his sons, but I got to tell you right now, he was really good at acclimating to the big Parsons family. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I know, put this in my lips actually. So, in fact, I'm not even sure I want to call him my brother-in-law. I'm thinking I was going to call him like my brother in booze, and my brother in food, or my brother in football. That was Hal. Right, forget it. Your brother-in-law. Speaking of which, man, that guy did love sports. But I'm going to be honest with you, we didn't always get along with sports. All right? It's really that football thing that we always talked about. I mean, come on, you guys are from England. And what sport is in England called football? It's not this football. So this is the conversation Hal and I constantly have. Look at the shape of this ball that you call football. It looks like more like a foot. Is that why you call it football? So, this is constant arguments about that. Greg, John, you guys should think about this, that you do have your British genes deep down, and someday when you watch an American football game, back of your head you're going to say, why are they using their hands? Right? It's called football. The other thing about Hal that I really remember is, you know, not so much as outlaw, but I think he was a really good friend. He put up with, for those that know, I'm a big car guy, called a gearhead. And if you remember back in the 80s, they made some strange cars. Hal had a 280 ZX Turbo T-top. You guys remember that? It was gold with gold wheels. It was like, wow. Like when you drove in that thing, it was like a party going down the street. It was awesome. But the other thing is, if you didn't know this about Hal, he said he had a poster of a Porsche when he was a kid. So, did you guys know that Hal had a Porsche at one time? Right? Bright red Porsche. He must have enjoyed that. He probably had, I think he had a hard time getting in and out of it though. Guy had a really long torso. So that's another great memory that I have of him. And then some of the random things I noted. So he loved Tahoe. He loved trains, for those who know that. Well, that wasn't me.
Yeah, we heard that.
Wow.
Sorry, guys.
Turn
I
it
had to
down.
kill it. I haven't touched it. That's it. Hold on.
You got a strong voice.
There's a mute board.
Enunciate. All right, go.
Speak loud.
Yeah, speak loud.
No, I
That's
can't
not
hear
risky.
that.
I'm just telling you to speak loud.
All right, I'm gonna speak normal.
Loud. Project it. Yell.
Okay, last things. Can you hear me now?
No.
No, you cannot hear me now. All right. I'll give it my, here, I got a pedestal. Hold on. Hal loved trains, all right? He was a master gambler. He loved going to England. Did you guys know that? Some of you know that? He loved being a goof all the time. His nickname was Happy, and he did maybe we should call him Happy Goof or something like that. My favorite Hal saying, I love seafood. I eat it. Love that one. And then finally, just to be done, this is a celebration, so let's give a round of applause to Humble Hal. Let's do it.
Drive.
I have one. I can yell. I don't even need it.
You don't.
Yeah.
Nice and loud.
I'll be really loud. Don't worry.
Just for the sake of time, we'll just take one, maybe two more if you guys want to speak. Just
I'll be quick.
Dick, you want to come up after Kyle?
Maybe I can shout about enough for.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Hal's brother. He was 11 years younger than me. I'm shocked that he's left us before I have. But we had a nickname for him. I haven't heard it been presented yet. And it was called Happy. We called him Hal. Hap. Because he was, as a child, when he was young, he was very happy. And he continued that through, I think, his adult life. As I say, I was 11 years older than he. I left the house about the time he was starting grammar school. Can you hear me back there?
Yes.
Okay. So he, my experience with living with him was strictly for the early years, and I never returned. But I remember one incident when I did return. I was drafted into the military and spent a year in Europe. And when I came back, I looked at this, the family reunion, and who's this guy? And it was my brother. I couldn't recognize him. He was right during the years of junior high school, when people, kids scoot up, I was shocked. I didn't recognize my own brother. But, let me, a couple of little incidents that happened during his childhood. One was my father parked his car in front of our house, and the back door opened, and Hal tumbled out head first onto the pavement. He split his forehead open, and I don't think he had any concussion or anything like that. But from then on, we used to say when he didn't do something wrong, it must be the bump on his head and such. Later on, he gave me a call. Now, this was when he was probably late 40s. He gave me a call and he says, I know you run the Beta Breakers. The Beta Breakers is the run from the ferry building out to the ocean in San Francisco. And you have as many as 70 or 100,000 people running that. The streets were just jammed. But I had run it a few times. And so he called up, he says, let's run it together. Okay, well, we ran it, we got out there okay. And, it's a little over 7 miles and one big hill. And we got out there okay. And then we looked at all this huge crowd, and they had these buses that would take you back to where your car was parked at the ferry building. Well, Hal says, hey, let's run back. Yeah. So I said, okay, well, we'll give it a shot. We'll take it easy. Man, by the time I ran that back, I was so exhausted I barely made it to the car. That's a round trip of about 15 miles. And I normally would only run 5 miles a day and such. But so anyhow, as I say, I left Hub, never was involved in living with him, after I went to college and such. But there was something else. By the way, I have a problem with my ears. My hearing aid went dead on me, and I've got a new one ordered, but I couldn't quite hear. So if I repeat something that somebody else has said, you'll know why. One of the things that was very shocking to me, or when I learned that Hal had run the Olympic torch in 1960 to the state capitol and such. I mean, he was on the TV and such at that. I didn't know when it was happening, but I saw it on the TV later on. So anyhow, God rest in peace, Hal and Hap. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to share Hal's favorite poem or joke, just to share a little bit of his humor, because I know that I've heard it many, many, many times.
Can we say it with you? Because I'm sure we all.
You might know it. Ladies and gentlemen, hobos and tramps, cross-eyed mosquitoes and bow-legged ants. Admission is free, so pay at the door, pull up a chair, and sit on the floor. One bright day in the middle of the night, two dead boys got up to fight. Back to back they faced each other, drew their swords, and shot each other. A deaf policeman heard the noise and came to arrest the two dead boys. If you don't believe that this lie is true, go ask the blind man. He saw it too.
He would say that all the time. I have that memorized. Goodness gracious. So, thank you all. I will give one last opportunity if anyone would like to speak. We do have some appetizers and some warm lunch ready to go. So if you just be patient, I believe we have one more speaker. Hopefully we can get you fed. Appreciate your patience. And thank you so much for being here. This is Madeline, one of our cousins.
You can just speak up. Hal was a tremendous joy, laughter. I want to say thank you to everyone that's here. You've been a special part of my life. Hal has been there through every single birth of every child I've had, 25, 24, and 18. 2 are here. He's the generous, lovely heart, and I'll always remember blackjack. I always asked him, do you count your cards? And he never answered me. But in the morning I'd go, it's 5 a.m. Did you make some money? He goes, I did all right. But the only other thing that was so amazing about how we had great times in Tahoe, and secondly, I got to see Robin Williams with him in Tahoe, and it was such a special moment that I'll never ever forget in my life, and he'll always live in my heart. Say hey to my mom and my dad, and we love you, and we'll remember you forever.
Thank you for everyone who's spoken. I do have a few last minute things. So on behalf of myself, my mom Anna, John, Mary, Greg, Tamara, Chris, grandkids, and Adriana, we do appreciate your time being here to help celebrate Hal. The next time you see a Sudoku puzzle or dig your toes in the sand at the beach, give Hal a wave. That breeze you could be feeling may be a warm hug from him. We'd also like to offer you a small wind-up toy on the table. If you'd like to take one home, one that may remind you of him, or a joy that can help trigger a thought of how he meant to you and what the time he spent in your life. So please help yourself to a toy on your way out. At this time, we are gonna offer some refreshments and things at the table, but I wanna also appreciate Anna, of course, for her unconditional love.